The window seat. She mopped floors when the world was sleeping. Room 212 always smelled like regret. He called her just a shadow the first time, but she brought apple juice anyway. Taught him to trust silence. He taught her middle C. Now her music fills the window seat he left behind. Hi everyone, welcome to the Pillow Files. Let's get started. Maya first learned how it felt to be invisible at 7 years old, when her Aunt Lydia answered the door on a Friday afternoon and found a nurse's uniform in her arms. The uniform was stained with vomit and blood, and the small hand that held it trembled. She saw worry in her aunt's eyes that had once shone with warmth, and then resignation. Lydia brought Maya inside and set her on the kitchen floor as if she were a package delivered without warning, cradling her good arm against her chest like it had been broken. Her mother, Maya's mother, had disappeared that morning, leaving behind only an eviction notice and the battered uniform, but no clues, no frantic phone calls, no one to ask. That day, Maya understood that the place you were supposed to call home would be taken from you in a single breath. Her aunt tried. For the first week, Lydia woke Maya with pancakes and scrambled eggs, brushing her curly black hair into braids for school. But after a few days, Lydia's exhaustion leaked through. The breakfast became toast, then cereal, then nothing at all. The braids unraveled into tangled nests. Lydia stayed silent during car rides. Fists knotted around the steering wheel as she dropped Maya at school. On the playground, children circled each other in clusters, ignoring her, except when a stray ball bounced into her. She let them retrieve it. At noon, the cafeteria ladies offered lunch trays. She ate, but at night, Lydia's door remained closed. Maya held her quilted doll, a small gift from her mother that smelled faintly of mothballs, and lay awake wondering whether anyone would look for her. When she turned 12, she discovered loneliness could feel like an itch at the base of her neck. Constant, a reminder that she didn't belong. Classmates passed around invitations to birthdays in glittery cursive and colourful doodles. They tapped her on the shoulder. "Are you coming? You should be there." But she was never invited. She stood at the back of the line clutching lunch trays and forced to endure swept-aside glances before she heard their whispered laughter behind her. The dining hall windows reflected her face. A thin child with eyes too old for her age. She swallowed the bitterness each time she saw them, hoping maybe one day they would call her name. By 18, she had aged out of foster care. There had been 5 families in 5 years, each one a revolving door of strangers who let her in, then glimpsed her sadness and kicked her out without notice. The last family she lived with left her behind when they moved out to sell the house. They said they couldn't afford to keep her. She packed her bag, 1 change of clothes, 3 books she'd read too many times, and the doll, and moved to the city. She slept in a church basement for 2 nights before finding a part-time job as a night janitor at New Hope Hospital. The shift was midnight to 8 a.m., quiet, cold, and away from prying eyes. She scrubbed floors in dim corridors lit by flickering fluorescent bulbs. She learned which janitorial closets were stocked with fresh mops and which ones ran out of trash bags by 2 a.m. She developed a rhythm: mop, rinse, vacuum, empty. The patients shuffled past her in their gowns, half asleep or half awake, their paths crossing with hers like ghosts drifting by. They did not look at her. They called her maintenance when nurses referred to her. When an intern spilled coffee a week into her job, he barked at her, "Get some napkins, would you?" and kept moving. She did not argue. She did not cry. She needed the job. She always needed the job. In the early mornings, she sat in the break room, watching the ceiling fan creak and hum overhead like a broken song. It sounded alive, an old circular lullaby that reminded her of rocking babies to sleep, of lullabies she hummed to herself as a child, hoping someone would hum one back. Her cracked iPad on her lap streamed lectures, sociology, literature, math. She took online classes because she believed education was her ticket out of invisibility. But each night, as she scrubbed colostomy trays out beneath harsh lights, she wondered if anyone would ever remember her name, or if she would always be just another shadow. One evening, as the spring air carried faint hints of cherry blossoms through the open corridor doors, she pushed her mop wringer open and paused outside room 212. She'd heard the door slam before, a sudden slam that echoed off the walls, followed by shouting. Nurses hurried past, whispering about Mr. Ellison in 212. She caught fragments: terminal, aggressive, no visitors, refusing food. She'd never been one to linger on gossip, but something inside her made her slow, her pace. Maybe it was her own history, a history of doors slamming in her face, of angry voices demanding she step aside. She understood why he was angry, or at least she thought she did. She turned toward the janitor's closet farther down the hall, intent on retrieving fresh cleaning solution. But then, footsteps from the other direction, soft but urgent, and she looked back at room 212. A nurse, pale, tense, slid out. She caught the tag on the nurse's scrubs. Ward, LPN. The nurse's jaw was tight, eyes anxious. You should stay away from 212 right now, she warned Maya. He's really lashing out. Maya hesitated. If they asked. For more supplies, I could. She shrugged. I'm just part of maintenance. LPN Ward's gaze softened. He needs to be alone. He's had a rough night. Maya inclined her head, back toward the closet. But she carried the memory of the slammed door, the angry shouting. She'd been angry herself at 8, at 9, at 10, when anything seemed unfair. But 2 years of watching her own reflection in hospital windows taught her that people who were angry needed more than avoidance. They needed understanding, or at least a witness. That night, as she scrubbed under the bed in room 212, pulling dust bunnies from corners, she heard heavy breathing. She wiped her hands on her pants and crouched forward. Mr. Ellison, a man, in his 60s with greying temples, lay stiff as a board. A nasal cannula fed him oxygen. Bruised eyebrows sagged over tired eyes. His hospital gown was crumpled, and he glared at her. You're just another shadow in this place, he said, voice low and gravelly. She let the towel drop, folded into her lap. Then maybe I'll stay quiet and keep you company. Shadow to shadow. She did not meet his eyes. Instead, she forced herself to notice his bedpans, the single photograph on his bedside table. An old black and white image of a younger man in a suit, arms around a woman in a wedding dress. He did not reply. He didn't shift or cry out. He simply stared at the ceiling, as though hearing her presence was as unwelcome as a stray cat's meow at midnight. She straightened up and readied to leave. If you need anything. She offered a small bow of her head. I'm here to clean. He shook his head. Don't bother. Nobody cares. Her chest tightened. She heard the hum of the ceiling, fan outside his room, the same old creak that lured tears from her eyes on lonely nights. She swallowed. I care, she said. Then she left, her footsteps soft on the linoleum. The next night, she returned to clean beneath his bed. He wasn't yelling. He wasn't flinging things. He lay on his back, eyes closed, as if trusting the night nurse to draw the blinds and turn off the harsh hall lights. She gathered dust beneath the bed, bits of lint, stray pills from the medicine tray, one dried up tissue. As she cleaned, he stirred and sat up abruptly, glaring at her. She froze, mid-swipe. I heard you last night, he spat. Saying you care, she stopped, stood, folded her hands. Yes, I care. He blinked. For a long moment, he stared at her, as though trying to decide if she was, like everyone else, another ghost passing through his world. She curled her lips in a faint apology. Want some apple juice? She asked, voice reddened. She inhaled the sharp chemical scent of cleaning solution in her nostrils. I can get you some. He looked away, almost imperceptibly nodding. If you must. She closed the slider and fetched a cup. She pressed the little tab on the nurse's station to request juice from the cafeteria. When the tray arrived, a plastic cup of pale liquid and a straw, She presented it quietly to him. He accepted it with one hand, as though a newborn asleep in his arms, and took a small sip. He closed his eyes, the muscles around his mouth softening. Night after night, she appeared at room 212's door. Sometimes he spoke. Sometimes he stared. Sometimes he lay in silence with the postcard from his wedding day propped on the bedside table. Eventually, he began to trust her presence, without words. He'd still kick away his food tray, but now he let her take it. He raged at doctors, told them they didn't know what they were doing. But when she arrived with the scrub brush or the fresh linen they'd just changed, he would look at her for a moment, his glazed eyes questioning, and she would finish her work in quiet dignity. By the end of the first week, he sat in the window seat as she came in. She dropped to one knee, offering his evening meds. He bristled. He rarely took medication, but she spoke softly. "It keeps you out of pain." He stared at the twilight, sky beyond the window. The setting sun painted the vineyard in warm orange. Splotches of pink haze surrounded the silhouette of a lone tree just beyond the orchard. He exhaled. "Window seats aren't just for the lucky ones," he said. She paused, mop in hand, absorbing his words. So often in his life, felt undeserving of a window seat, always tucked in a dark corner. She knelt, set the mop aside, and rose. "It's yours whenever you want it," she said. Then she walked out, leaving the door open. On her way to the laundry closet, she pressed the buzzer for new linens, her heart heavy. She had skipped college the semester after she turned 18. She'd never even set foot on campus. But she knew worth when she saw it, shaded in loneliness and regret. On her way down the hallway, she glimpsed another patient, a mother holding her newborn, tears of joy in her eyes. The woman nodded at Maya as she passed. In that moment, Maya felt a hollow shift in her chest, just enough to allow compassion to slip through. That night, as she scrubbed the tile in the hallway near 212, she felt her phone vibrate. It was a notification, her sociology class deadline. Approaching, she slipped her cracked iPad from her pocket and checked the assignment instructions. But then she heard faint sobbing from the room. She paused. Communication shift or not. She set the tablet aside and returned inside, carrying 2 glasses of water. She stepped softly to the bedside, where Mr. Ellison was recoiling from his pillow, his face covered with tears. The window seat beside him held his half-eaten dinner tray, cold vegetables, an untouched roll, a cup of broth. She set 1 glass on his nightstand, whispered, "Here." He took a sip, tears soaking his hospital gown. She knelt and brushed his hair away from his temple. His eyes fell closed. She recognized that knot of sorrow from her own life. Heb Ma. He would not die alone tonight. Over the next days, their silent bond deepened. He told her his daughter, his only child, had died of leukemia 10 years ago. He stopped speaking about his wife. She had left soon after the funeral. He blamed himself for living too long, for not dying with her. She did not judge him. She only sat by his side as he drifted between consciousness and dreams. Sometimes she would hum a lullaby. Somewhere over the rainbow, the same one she used to sing to herself as a girl searching for her mother. He listened, tears leaking, then whispered, "Music when I needed it." One morning, she found him staring at the sunrise, streaking over distant mountains. Lush green hills turned gold in the dawn light. He looked frail, so frail she feared the next breath might be his last. She cleared her throat. "Mr. Ellison." She knelt by the mattress. "What do you want today?" He blinked, then pointed a finger to the window seat. She rose, pulled a chair beside him, and sat. They watched the sunrise in silence for a long moment. Then he turned to her. "Have you ever played Chopin? Or Bach? I used to teach piano." She swallowed. "No, I never learned." He studied her. "Maybe it's time. He inhaled, as though drawing courage. "I'll try to teach you." She froze, mop dripping in her hand. "But I'm just a janitor. I can't play." He chuckled, though it sounded like a rattling exhale. "I don't care who you are. We can start with one note." That afternoon, when Marisol left and the corridors grew quiet, she hunted through the janitorial closet until she found sheets of clean paper. She pushed them into Lucas's backpack and tucked her iPad into another sleeve. She found old guides. Music Theory for Beginners, Piano Scales 101. She carried them all back to 212, placing them on his bedside table. He nodded, as though satisfied. He set a small keyboard, left by a patient who never picked it, up, on the foot of his bed. It was missing 2 keys, a silence in E, flat, and A, but it lay there waiting. She knelt, touched a single key, middle C, a simple, pure tone. He placed his hand above it, guided her finger. "Press," he instructed. She pressed. The note rang out. She blinked, heart fluttering. "Again," he said. She pressed again. He smiled. "Home." She exhaled, tears prickling her eyes. Home. They met every night until the end of his life. He taught her scales, hand positions, how to shape a chord so it resonated. She climbed onto the window seat, her usual spot, unrolling music manuscripts in front of her. He sat on the bench, fingers poised above the cracked ivory keys. Without words, they found solace in each other's company, in each note passed, back and forth, like a lifeline. When he passed, quietly, in his sleep, she found an envelope with his name on her locker at the end of her shift. It contained her name on a scrap of page. She held it trembling in her hand. Inside, he had written, "Dear Maya, thank you for sitting beside me when no one else would. You reminded me that dignity isn't reserved for the wealthy. It is given by those who see you. Pass it on. Jack Ellison." She read it twice. Then she folded it, slipped it into her pocket, and steeled herself to face the empty bed where he once sat. On the window seat lay one sheet of paper, handwritten music, simple scale, with the words, "To Maya," for the first lesson. She touched the piano keys, soft and cool beneath her fingertips, pressed middle C, and for the first time since she was a child, she heard her own room fill with music. Months later, Maya climbed the stage at Westwood Community Hospital's annual fundraiser, an event designed to raise money for pediatric cancer research. She wore a simple blouse and dark slacks, her hair pulled back so that her eyes, now brighter, though forever haunted by shadows, shone fully. She sat at an upright piano, slightly worn around the edges, and took a deep breath. Above her, twinkling, lights hung like lanterns, and hospital staff, donors, and visitors held their programs in hand, waiting. She thought of Mr. Ellison's final gift, the promise that dignity could be earned in gestures of kindness. She opened the lid, and the assembled audience watched as she positioned her fingers over the keys. The first notes were that simple scale, C, D, E, F, small steps, a tribute to her teacher who had taught her to play again. Then she launched into a Chopin nocturne, the notes rippling like waves. Her fingers stroked each key with tenderness. She poured every ounce of her longing, her childhood abandonment, her years of invisibility, her pain at Mr. Ellison's death, into the music. When the final chord faded into silence, the audience sat in stunned quiet before bursting into applause. That night, as the program concluded, she crossed the lobby to an empty wheelchair. She had placed it there in honor of Mr. Ellison, the chair he had given her as a window seat. She slipped a small plaque onto it. "In memory of Jack Ellison, because window seats are for everyone." She wheeled it to a spot by the large picture windows facing the hospital garden. It stood alone, a silent invitation to anyone who needed to sit quietly and listen, just as he had invited her. In the days that followed, she noticed people drawn to that window seat. An anxious mother, with her newborn in a bassinet, a teenager with a broken leg, an elderly man singing a hymn under his breath. Each time, she let them sit, watch, and feel the sunlight streaming through the glass. Maya became a nurse's aide, transitioning from janitor to caretaker, because she understood what it felt like to be overlooked, to be the shadow walking unseen. When she donned her scrubs and name badge, she greeted patients by name, asked about their families, listened to their fears. She offered them window seats, beds by the windows, a quiet moment to watch the sky change color. She soothed them not only with medicine, but with the same compassion Mr. Ellison had shown her. She hummed lullabies as she changed linens. She brought cups of tea and gentle smiles. She carried his letter in her pocket. At the end of every shift, she often paused by the window seat in the lobby, where a small plaque bore his name. She touched the wood of the chair, rested her palm on the plaque, and whispered, "Thank you." Then she pressed her fingertips against the glass, watched the world beyond continue. Trees swaying, birds dipping to the fountain, leaves drifting to rest above the reflecting pool. If any patients passed, she smiled at them, shrugged at their polite hello as they sank into the window seat her mentor had left behind. One afternoon, as she scrubbed the floors near pediatrics, she heard a soft voice. Nurse Maya. She turned to see a girl about 7, holding her mother's hand. The girl had bright eyes but looked hesitant. Can I sit by the window?" she asked. Maya's heart swelled. She knelt, adjusting the supply cart. "Of course," she offered, her elbow. "Come with me." They walked together to the window seat. The girl settled, her legs dangling. She inhaled deeply, as though drinking in the garden's green and gold. Maya smiled and whispered, "It's yours." The mother joined them, tears in her eyes. "Thank you," she said. "My daughter, we've been here for days." Maya nodded. "I know it helps to see the sky." The girl looked up at Maya. "Did you choose this?" Her voice was quiet, but certain. Maya knelt beside her. "Yes, it's a chair for anyone who needs a little peace." The girl sniffled, pressed her hand against the cool glass. "I think I need peace." Maya nodded, resting a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You can stay as long as you like." As the mother turned to get a tissue, the girl looked at Maya with a fierce clarity. "Thank you for seeing me." Maya's throat tightened. She leaned forward, near enough that the girl could smell the lavender soap on her skin. "You're always seen here." Years passed. Maya walked the hospital corridors in her scrubs, no longer a shadow in the night, but a beacon of compassion. The hallways still echoed with footsteps, nurses' laughter, monitors beeping. She polished the floors during the quiet hours, but now she carried a gentle invitation in her presence. An outstretched hand, a kind word, a silent understanding that everyone deserved dignity. When a teenage boy arrived in ED with broken ribs, after a skateboarding accident, he slid into bed with no visitors. Maya provided warm blankets. She spoke to him about skate parks and favorite YouTubers. She offered him the window seat in his room, propping pillows so he could gaze at the eucalyptus trees swaying outside. He nodded, the first smile he'd given anyone in days, and whispered, "Thank you for seeing me." When an exhausted young woman showed up postpartum, motherless and alone, Maya brought extra nurse's notes from the window seat card. She told the woman, "Sit here, take a breath." The new mother closed her eyes as Maya watched her from the doorway, the afternoon sun pooling on her hair like honey. On summer evenings, Maya walked out the sliding doors into the parking lot, paused, and stared at the hospital's silhouette against the burnt orange sky. She remembered Mr. Ellison's face, weathered, kind, and broken, and how he'd taught her to care for shadows with gentle music. She thought of all the patients who had taken the window seat, a boy teaching his mother to draw, an elderly man composing prayers as he watched the clouds, a teen holding hands with a sister who had come to say goodbye. When she returned to the lobby, she often found another patient beside the window seat, a teenage girl, a veteran holding a prosthetic leg, a child clutching a coloring book. They all looked up at her with relief, as though she'd carved out a refuge for them. One time, a small boy asked, "Is this chair magic?" She smiled and knelt. "It's not magic. It's just for anyone who needs to remember they exist." He placed his head on the windowsill, closed his eyes. "It feels like home." Maya thought of her aunt's doorstep, the cafeteria line, the empty foster care goodbye, places where she too had felt unseen. She stood and brushed the boy's hair from his forehead. "Then this is your home any time." On a crisp autumn morning, Maya arrived early. She placed fresh flowers on the windowsill, a small vase of daisies from the hospital garden club. She pressed the petals between her fingers, inhaled their sweet, earthy scent. She looked down at the plaque, "In memory of Jack Ellison," because dignity belongs to everyone. She traced the letters with her fingertip, love and sorrow swirling in her chest. She straightened, wiped her hands on her scrubs, and drew back the blinds to unveil the garden beyond. Maple trees had turned bronze and crimson. Roses clung to their last petals. A crisp breeze stilled the leaves. She thought of Mr. Ellison, humming lullabies on the silent keys, offering the window seat when no one else would. She felt grateful that his gift had become her own calling. At precisely 7:30 a.m., the sliding doors whooshed open. A young woman in a hospital gown, clutching a dog-eared paperback, shuffled in. She looked up, saw Maya, and stepped slowly to the window seat. Her eyes, red-rimmed, flicked from the daisies to the garden, then settled on Maya. She questioned. "I can sit here." Maya offered her hand. "This is yours." The woman exhaled, relief softening her shoulders. She eased onto the chair, legs across the edge, as though it had been waiting just for her. As she inhaled deeply, Maya noticed she clutched a hospital ID. Sophie Carnival, room 213. Sophie's tears glistened. She wiped them and said, "Thank you." Maya knelt, brushing tendrils of hair from Sophie's face. "You're welcome. I'm here if you need anything." Sophie smiled, the first genuine smile in days. She pressed her palm to the vase of daisies. "I needed flowers." She sniffed. "And a window." Maya breathed in the crisp morning, air that spilled across the lobby. "You'll always have them." Sophie closed her eyes and shifted to watch the leaves swirl in the breeze. Maya rose, straightened her cardigan, and moved down the hallway. Another shadow in the hospital. Though no one would mistake her for absent anymore, she turned back at the glass doors once, catching Sophie's profile in the reflection. A woman not alone, but connected to the endless sky outside. She stepped away, ceiling fan humming quietly behind her, leaving one chair open, just in case someone else needed the window seat. End. Love this story? Hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more stories that reveal the quiet power of kindness. Don't forget to check out the video currently on your screen. You won't want to miss what happens when a single moment changes everything. See you in the next one.